Scooby-Doo. So
Yeah.
hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer. Dani Katz is with me. This is words number 64. Dani hates everything. Fill us in.
That's all I got. Everything sucks. This species is lame. This planet is boring. Can I be done?
Well, I do have one comment to make. My little niece, she just turned 1 last week. She has teeth, and they look like yours, and it's so cute.
I'm sure her parents will get her braces and then they won't.
Well, the gap in the teeth is like my grandmother had that, right? Like she had a gap actually big. Let me see yours.
Mine's still growing.
It was about the same size as yours. Hers was pretty. I'll show you a picture sometime. Hers was pretty, like you could drive a car through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it would take more than just the gap in the teeth, but these are baby teeth anyway. So
they'll fall out.
Right. But it would take more than just the gap in the teeth for my sister to feel compelled towards braces, I think, because I think
good.
I think that's my sister had braces like twice and a headgear and all that shit. I don't think she liked that very much. Yeah, it was part of my grandmother's charm. So I'm sure she's, like probably
she's like, oh, Zadie.
Yeah. Her name's Minnie, not Sadie, but
sorry, Minnie.
Her name's actually Monroe, but it's become Minnie. So anywho.
Okay.
Yes, the name Monroe came about when Michael and I were doing all the stuff on, the Monroe Institute, the Gateway document, just coincidentally. It's also my grandfather's name and she's named after him. So.
Oh, that's so sweet.
My grandfather's brother's name is Robert, and Monroe Institute, his name was Robert. And, I used to live a block up from Monroe. It just goes on and on and on, right? Somebody was watching my show about that the other day, and they were like, oh, that's funny. I used to live on Monroe Street in Austin. And you know what I mean? Anywho, but the teeth are cute. So anyway, all right. So what happened today? It seems like there was something that transpired between your last voice text to me earlier today and now that has just increased your vitriol for.
No, it hasn't. It's just been very dense. Like my Lionsgate was very dense. These past couple weeks have been very dense. Just kind of talking behind the scenes. I don't like this new, 80,000 new IRS workers with guns, the Trump FBI raid, the torrential rains here, which obviously indicate that HAARP is pulling water out of the atmosphere somewhere else to set them on fire while our city floods. I'm just like over, the big tech fuckery. I killed a podcast I did with Miriam because we both got targeted the same day. And I was just like, it's not worth it. It's just lame. It's just all lame.
So there's a couple of things. So I had the major like last week I had meltdowns. Like Laura keeps saying it feels weird to her this week. And like, it feels weird to me in this week in like the comical way that everything feels weird all the time now. We can talk about that in just a minute. But like last week I had meltdown. Like I threw like a hissy tantrum fit. Like the other day, like the kind that like the little kid throws in Toys R Us when they can't get the toy they want. Like we've talked about.
You.
Yeah, but like I couldn't help myself. I just was like, right. So I had that last week. This week seems to be better for me, but it is it's feeling very odd. It's feeling like, the biggest thing is like we have now had weeks of just unreal skies in terms of like endless, epic, puffy, fluffy clouds. And then some of them just look like they would have the most majestic of cities inside of them and faces that look like gods and, but fluff. It really, and an endless amount of them, right? Like it just looks like these skies with these puffy clouds go on forever. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm in a created reality of some different sort. And it feels like Like it feels like it's getting to be time to exit stage left, whatever that means. And like, I actually feel like the thing that happened, and I would like to, you to update the people on this. The thing that happened at your theater, at your improv place, was kind of like, those people are still like really enraptured, like entranced by the show, right? They're really in the play. They have completely like dissolved any boundaries between themselves and the roles they're playing and all of that kind of stuff. And it feels like we like, we're ready to be done with the dope show, right? And like, I'm trying to understand what exit stage left means. Like, remember in Dark City, they opened the thing of the Shell Beach postcard and whatever, and Truman found his way off the set. Like, it feels like that we are at that point. And I don't know what that means. I'm not implying anything like dark or sinister or weird or macabre or anything like that by that. But like, I think that there is like a level and layer to this that we're kind of like done with.
That is what I feel like. I do. And like being perfectly honest, that improv thing has really gotten to me. Like it really upsets me to my core, and the way everyone around has handled it and all the implications. And I'm just like, I want an island where none of this is happening. And right. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It doesn't seem like a big deal. But on top of like, okay, then a week later, my Google Voice is suspended the same day Miriam's Venmo is deleted right after we'd been talking about a bunch of shit. It's just like every day, as I said the last show, like what fresh hell is this? And these aren't even people. Like I'm just starting to believe that they literally are walking hologram NPCs that are running whatever, OS systems are coming through their injections, and it's not fun. It's fucking annoying.
Let's hear, because last time we were just at the beginning of your improv debacle, right? So why don't you fill people in, and then I want to say something about what you said, because I think that the people you're talking about are a layer, and it might be a really thick layer, but I don't think that all the other layers, except for like those, like except for ours, is necessarily like that. It's just like the biggest, loudest, whiniest layer, right? But I've discovered other layers that are kind of interesting that I'll fill you in on. But first, let's fill the people in, because I'm sure everyone's been waiting with bated breath to find out what happened.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone cares so much. I will say, and I know we'll dive into it more. Yes, it's the biggest, whiniest layer, but it's everyone else who stands by and knows it's wrong and says fucking nothing, that I'm over it. I'm over it. All these little weak-willed babies who watch this injustice and don't want to say anything because they don't want to be uncomfortable. I'm over them too.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, the timeline. Improv class happened Monday. You and I did a show on Wednesday. I drove to the hot springs with Ross the next day, got an email. So this was Thursday night, from not my teacher, not anyone in the class, but the artistic director of the improv school, who sent me a 9-paragraph email saying, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I don't want to waste time parsing out what happened, but you're on probation. We don't tolerate this kind of behavior. You've received a strike, and the only way we're letting you back in class is if you send a public apology to the entire class telling them how bad you feel.
Did you ask them if they worked for YouTube or Twitter?
I think it's Facebook. Pretty sure they're Meta employees.
Twitter is the one that has like the public apology shaming, because they make you delete your offending tweet if you want your account back, right? So it sounds most like Twitter to me.
What was it in the 9?
Like YouTube, but the public shaming and apology sounded more like Twitter.
Yeah, so it was in the 9 paragraphs, he wasn't there. He said he didn't care about what happened, but there was a whole paragraph about what community is and how it's very important for community building that everyone feels safe and blah, 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 blah. And my response was like, well, that's interesting because I've been part of this community now for a couple of years. This doesn't have me feeling safe at all. And as a professional communications consultant, in terms of community building, like public shaming is not a way to build community. Like that's actually anathema to building community. And whenever I've seen anything even vaguely similar to what you don't want to know happened in class, like a teacher will address the whole class and not single anyone out to make them feel unsafe. So it's not really like, and I realize that's a big part of the op is that you have to publicly apologize and say that I feel bad. So obviously you can imagine how well that landed. And I was like, wow, I find it so interesting that you have the time to send me 9 paragraphs and demand a public apology and put me on probation, but you don't have 5 minutes to carve out to have a conversation with me who's not only paid for 4 sessions of classes, but referred people your way to determine what actually happened. Yeah, I'm not apologizing. I don't kowtow to indoctrinated hysteria. And I'm only interested in doing improv with self-responsible adults who have tools to handle their own psycho-emotional states. So then from there, and I finished it with like, you know, thank you for taking a moment for reflecting on how badly you've handled this. I think at this point, the best thing to do is to send me an apology and a prorated refund because I don't feel safe returning. I didn't get an apology. I didn't get a refund, but then I got an email from the president of the school.
Oh.
Yes, it went to the president saying that he understands that it was an issue that the teacher never said anything, probably because it wasn't a problem. And he realizes that what I said in class wasn't a problem at all. The problem was the conversation that happened outside of class with the offended party, and I was so inappropriate and dismissive in that. And I'm like, wow, it's so interesting how you guys are all so omniscient that you weren't there, but you know that this conversation I had now outside of class that is the problem was the issue. I don't want to bore everyone. It's the most boring fucking story. Anyway, we went back and forth a bunch of times. And I've been banned for life from the school. And then they called the other improv school in town and tried to get me banned there. But I've taken classes there and I have a good relationship with them. So they said, no, we're not going to do that.
Okay, score 1 for standing up for justice. There we go.
Yeah. And then Ross did go back to class because people suck. But he did audio record what they said. And they lied and said that they talked to me, which to this day has not happened.
I was going to ask you about, I wasn't going to mention his name, but since you mentioned his name.
He doesn't listen to our show. Who fucking cares?
Okay. So, well, I try to be respectful to the people closest to all of our lives who didn't necessarily sign up for this, even though they signed up for us, right? So, and whether he likes it or not, he has signed up for you. So,
yeah.
Okay. So did he have like a moment of pause about whether he wanted to go back or not? Like what was the conversation? And so, right?
Fuck no. No. And like, of course not. Of course not. There was a moment when he found out that they called the other school to have me banned. I mean, just in case the audience didn't listen to our last show, I said in the middle of a sketch while playing a bodybuilder, ballet is faggy. That's
while playing a bodybuilder making smoothies.
While making smoothies, yeah. No, he tried to get me to apologize and I fucking lost it. And that's when I texted you and my friend Elise, because I just needed to hear from people who know me and would say, please send me a copy of your fuck you letter. He had a moment of pause when they called the other improv school. There's a part of me that respects him for like doing what he wants and not kowtowing. And then there's another aspect that's like, does everyone on this planet know what the word integrity means? I guess not.
Right. Yeah. It's like, this is like, okay. So yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that if all of us go around all the time withdrawing from everything that, you know what I mean, then I don't know that necessarily works. But like, sometimes you have to be like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not listening to this anymore. And sometimes you need to do it with small things. Sometimes you need to do it with big things. I guess the best thing to do is to be like not predictable with it, right? But sometimes just be like, yeah, not doing that. So next time, Ross, not doing that, right? Don't be predictable.
Right.
But I mean, it is very like sometimes it seems like a small thing. Like I'm sure in anyone's mind, like, oh, Dani's argumentative. People say the same thing about me. Like she always is looking for da. But like, no, that's missing the larger point. Like that's missing a ridiculous point here, right? Like some people like you or I, and this goes back to, 1982 and Van Nuys and whatever. Like it's easy to look at us and go, they bring it on themselves, right? Because we have a way about ourselves. But generally, at a later time, people will, when they're old enough or not in the worry about what everyone thinks at the moment, that when we were younger, it was when they get old enough. Now it's when they're away from it and think, actually, the point was good. The point was right. You know what I mean? And whatnot. And the same thing that makes them how they are also makes them the only one that is going to be willing to say anything about the thing. Right. So yeah, so
But I feel like because it's a free speech issue, like this is what I was reflecting, because I am getting a lot of this, like, yeah, you open your mouth and you offend people, and how dare you victimize yourself to that? I'm getting a lot of that. Like, okay, fair enough. But when I think back to the moment where I call her Hole now, because I'm that fucking pissed, where Hole had an MK Ultra meltdown over me saying faggy in a skit and told me not to say that word again. And I discussed this with Miriam. It's like, well, I have my own trauma as a journalist for being censored, So it's like improv was allegedly the last place I had where I was allowed to play and speak freely, So like, let's look at context here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it could go either way. That way, right? Like if she's claiming trauma based on it's like, right, like it's the same thing.
But here's the thing, I didn't bring my trauma into it. I didn't say, well, I'm traumatized because I'm a journalist. I just said this isn't appropriate for improv and I'm not going to apologize. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just don't take improv if you're that motherfucking delicate.
Yeah, it is scary how many, like the biggest thing, like I actually think probably the teacher who's her boyfriend, right? And the president and all the people, I think they probably agree with you, but they're more concerned about the hell that will rain down on them if she tweets about it, Yelps about it, Googles about it, tells her friend who works for this blog or that paper or the whatever. Everybody, like, so I hung out with my friend Kathy this weekend, who like we disagree about everything, but we love each other anyway, right? And like, it's funny because she was talking about, who Adam Kinzinger is, the rhino Adam Kinzinger. Like he's one of these like anti-Trump Republicans or whatever, right? But she was saying how she was listening to him talk about how everyone is just so worried about being canceled or losing their friends or their social status. I was like, I disagree with everything he says, but I agree with him about that, right? Because someone was asking how he's been so brave to go against the rest of the Republicans who just, fell in line behind all that nonsense and whatever, right? But it's hilarious that now people that we totally disagree, like that, what he's saying is right. Everybody is just afraid of being canceled. And that is the whole, so this gets to like the layer, right? So there's this, do you know what ganache is?
The cake?
Okay, so ganache is like sort of the thickest, like most dense, like kind of like frosting-y, soft stuff that could be like in the middle, right? Or the ganache could be like a layer on top, but it could also be like the very thickest part of like the icing layer in the middle of something. It's kind of like the vein in the blue cheese, right? It's like the part where like the most condensed yumminess is, right? In general, in food. This disgusting thing we're dealing with, like the ganache, like in this case, the loudest, whiniest, most stucky, whatever, the part that has the most are these crazy people. And then everybody else is like you know, in this sort of icing layer around them, where it's like they know that everybody likes the ganache the best, and so they don't want to offend the ganache, right? But they're sticking themselves to something that is yuck.
So I actually have compassion for Hole and the ganache because she's under legit mind control, right? So all the distress she's feeling, she's really feeling that. It's misplaced and it's irresponsible and it's wrong use of will, but that's genuine. These, and I will say they're all, and you're totally right, they're all three white guys who are, I don't want to say pussies because I don't want to disrespect the power of the pussy. They're scrows. They're wimpy little baby scrows. And these are the people in our culture who I am so tired of their bullshit of playing into the ganache histrionics. When I heard the recording of, and I don't care, I'll name names, Eric lying and saying that he spoke to me and I was being kicked out of class. And a couple of people in class were like, why? Like what? Like no one in class knew what he was talking about. No one knew. And after they explained, someone said someone said a homophobic statement. Still people were like, really? What? Huh? Everyone was, huh? And Eric, the guy who's making this like grand announcement, is like, yeah, but someone got hurt. You know, we really as a community have to pay attention because someone got hurt here. And I was just trying to not choke on my own vomit as I'm listening to that. Like, no one got fucking hurt. Someone heard a word they didn't like. They were programmed not to like.
Right. Yeah. The whole thing is ridiculous. And what's funny about it, like I read the letter and the letter was actually quite revealing about them. Right. Because he, like, basically what he was saying is it's like, I don't actually have a problem with you if you're homophobic, as long as you do it in your own home and don't bring it to class.
Right.
Which leads me to believe that maybe they actually harbor some secret beliefs of their own and they have just figured out where it's okay to have them and where they haven't. Right. I think it's hilarious. Right. That like your language, one of your language shows with your co-host, I'm in a same-sex relationship. I'm not offended by anything you say. How can it be that the people that are the thing that you're supposedly offending aren't offended by it, but the people who just consider themselves that adjacent or want to be that, like they're having this hysterical breakdown, right? There's part of me that wants to make like a YouTube video public service announcement to the people of the school being like, hey, right? Because like, you know, like there's probably, you know, we don't have a huge audience, but there's enough that they can bombard the school with, you know.
Right. Right. I mean, I've licked pussy in my day. It's the most ridiculous allegation, but they didn't even care. That's the thing. Like, if you're legit concerned about a safe community, don't you want to have a conversation with me to vet whether or not I really am this violent, raging homophobe that you're accusing me of being? No, we don't want to do that. We just want your fake apology.
Right. It's all performative, right? So like this was like, we are getting to that point in the show where it's just like melodrama and vaudeville and nonsense. And they're really like, it's so histrionic. It's so overacted. It's so like, that's why I'm saying it's time to leave the theater, because this is no longer right. Like, so leaving the theater that you left and leaving the theater of this kind of thing, it's like there is a real world out there somewhere. I feel like Duran Duran, as I try to make my way right to the, like, that's what it feels like. And I'm having this, you know, even though like I live in a relatively cool place where people, even the people who are unreasonable are reasonable in terms of like, they may hold irrational, unreasonable beliefs, but for some reason they're also able to be social in a way that it seems to be mostly fine, right? So that's pretty cool. But I tend to stay, you know, like I have a big community of you guys that I talk to, and, you know, like most of my friends are, you know, reasonably sane. Maybe we're all insane, I don't know. And then like when I go out to dance music stuff, I just don't talk about that stuff with those people, right? I just go and I close my eyes and I dance, whatever. But I don't like go outside of my few bubbles very often. Like I exercise on the trail. I have no idea what the people that I mean, I imagine what the people I'm passing are like and think. I make up stories and whatever. They don't actually know. but I've been working at this job that I took, right? So, and again, doing physical labor, which seems to have like released some old stored lactic acid from muscles. And I'm thinking, I'm recognizing that I was entrained into like this particular reality that didn't have me like looking at things from other angles and just doing all the movement and driving a bit again and whatever. Like I'm thinking differently, which is great. But also, like I work somewhat in this kitchen. It's a ghost kitchen. And then I work in like a walk-in refrigerator. So when I'm working in the walk-in refrigerator, I'm by myself. Mm-hmm. But when I'm in the kitchen, I'm with other people, right? And the other people are, well, like my bosses, they don't live here. They live like they're not local. They are making a portion of the company here and whatever. They're British guys, okay? The British white guys. But the people who work in the kitchen, like it's a shared ghost kitchen. They're all Black, right? And most of them are men. There's like one woman, right? And so I'm in there with them for like maybe 4 or 5 hours a week. And like the other day, the two guys were like, they were talking about stuff that guys talk about, like about chicks and whatever. And they're like, are we offending you? Do you mind? I was like, no, I'm not offended. But even if I was, I'm a free speech absolutist. So have at it, offend me. I don't care. And they were like, oh, that's cool. Right. So like the people that supposedly like we're protecting by not being free speech absolutists find it cool that I'm a free speech absolutist and that I'm not bothered. They weren't really being offensive. They were just talking about how chicks are and right for the most part agreed and whatever, right? So like it's interesting. Like they don't care about any of the shit you and I care about. They're fucking talking about baby mamas and crazy bitches and who hit their car and that kind of stuff. And then today it was, I think, like there's one guy who's there almost all the time when I'm there, and he works with a variety of other people. I think this might have been like his mom or his cousin or something he was working with today. And they were just talking about like their reality is completely different than ours. Right. I don't want to say more simple because in this world that makes it feel like I'm belittling it. They just have a completely different set of concerns, right? They don't know anything about the stuff you and I talk about. Right. And I'm listening to them talk and they have their problems and they're annoyed with their things and whatever. But I'm like, it's actually refreshing just to hear them talk about like normal shit and not this stuff. Right. And they're not dumb. Like they're very intelligent. But they're just not concerned with like this level of navel gazing that we have decided to spend our lives completely dedicated to. And it's very interesting to both observe. I'll say a few things here and there, just I'll pop in, at some point or another, and they're, very friendly and whatever. But I had forgotten that there's like more than this shit that because it's so all consuming, right? Like even when I go out on the trail, I'm seeing all this other stuff, but I'm thinking my own thoughts or I'm listening to stuff or whatever. But like I'm in a kitchen where it's too loud for me to like listen to anything. So I'm just letting myself experience the ambient sounds that are going on there, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like these people, like Dave, they're there, they're working full time, they're doing their hustle, they're doing the same thing on some level that we're doing, but they don't care about any of this stuff because they don't even know it exists. They have no idea about the IRS agents, right? Like so there's a layer of society that feels totally sane to me, different than our layer, but like sanity level is actually the one that you and I are striving for, right? And then there's whatever layer we at, or I'm not doing it in any hierarchical order. It's a hierarchy or whatever. Right. But there's this crazy, super dense layer in the middle, the vein or the ganache or whatever, and then there's this like moist, fluffy, gross cake surrounding it. That are these people.
It's the fucking cake. The fucking cake is the problem.
Right? So like, it's just, that's the part that's like, there are people out there that are just fine. And at this point, like I'm relieved when nobody knows what I'm talking about. Like, that's like, great. We don't have to talk about it. Let's move on. Right. Yeah. So as to I just want to point out to everybody that like you said, you were upset about the IRS agents and stuff like that. This is like a repeat. This happened, like, I feel like this story is like, they always do this at a certain point in the cycle of the op, right? Because I remember when this happened before. Like, well, remember a few months ago, there was a story about IRS buying up a bunch of ammo?
Yes.
Okay, so that also happened back like 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh,
and then,
really?
So like all this ammo and then all of this new agents. It was when Lois Lerner was still with the IRS and they were targeting the Tea Party and all that shit. So I feel like they run this op like on a cycle or whenever a certain thing happens, when polls get to a certain thing or whatever, right? So like, or they're just testing the waters to see. Like, remember when several months back, they did this thing where it was like, they were going to ask banks to like report your bank accounts for anybody who had more than $500 in their bank account.
Yeah.
They were like, no. And so they dropped it. They'll try it again. So I think it's like a temperature taking.
Okay.
Like, I don't think these things generally get that far, right? Like, I don't like, I think some of them do. But I think the ones that do are not the ones we know about. When they get through, we don't hear about them. Right? When that kind of stuff. I think all of this is like to fluff up the outrage machine to see if they can get somebody to commit an act of domestic terror so they finally can sign that bill, right? Like all that kind of, I think there's a lot, but this is just, if anybody else out there remembers like the last cycle of this kind of story, it was, maybe like a slightly different iteration of it. So it's designed to get people exasperated. They want people acting up right now.
Okay, but what do you think about Alex Jones selling out for that bit of bullshit theater? That, I don't think that bodes well for alt media folks.
How do you mean?
Well, my sense about from what I know about it and the pieces that I saw and Frank Jacobs' work, that he sold out and made a deal to get sovereign social credit status and play along with the ridiculous performative theatrics of this fake Sandy Hook libel case.
So I don't know who Frank Jacobs is. The sovereign thing you're talking about, somebody sent me something about it that I went and looked at some kind of labs website and whatever, and it showed all the people who were granted. I feel like this is also, I've seen stuff like this before, actually probably about the same time I saw the last IRS ammo new agents kind of op.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, until I tuned into the little bits I saw of the Alex Jones trial, which was the fakest thing I've ever seen.
So I haven't been tracking this. I haven't been following this very much, but it's been impossible to avoid this week, right? Just based on like everyone's talking about it. So I did listen to a pretty intelligent piece about it from what wasn't on her show. It was Kim Iverson was on the Gray Zone with Max Blumenthal, and she was informing him about it because he didn't seem to completely understand either. So she was explaining why he got a default trial instead of like a regular trial, and I have no idea. I don't care about Alex Jones.
No.
Like, it doesn't matter to me. I think whatever he is, it's an important step in somebody developing a level of discernment and independent thought and, not just accepting like having your margins widened a centimeter or an inch or whatever. It's, he's part of that structure. And I still firmly believe, like, when I get like the psychic imprint of someone, like I trust that. I don't think he's an innately evil person. I think all the shady shit he's done because he is, self-indulgent at a level that he's gotten himself into some trouble, and he's not mature enough to own up to his shortcomings and just accept the flogging and then move on. So I don't think it's like kind of thing, right?
No, I don't think so. If like my sense is that he was pushed against the wall at this late stage of the game and cut a deal to play along. But the pieces that I saw of the trial did not seem real in any way.
Her analysis of this was, because I didn't understand the whole default, like the way most people, and again, this is just Kim Iverson. I'm not saying she's right about everything. She has shown some integrity. She just walked away from the Hill because they cut her out of the Anthony Fauci interview and whatever. So she took a big paycheck cut to hold her journalistic integrity, or at least she's playing that role. So we'll go with that for right now. But she pointed out something that like I didn't understand because I'm not following it closely, right? He didn't get a default trial because this is like a kangaroo court thing that was unfair that happened to him. You get, apparently in this kind of case, you get a default judgment or a default court or whatever the kind of thing is called when you don't turn over, like when you basically plead the fifth and don't turn over the evidence that they're asking for in this kind of trial in time, then it goes to default and they just pass a judgment based on the evidence that what they think. It's not quite the same. It's not like I didn't even know this. He didn't turn over a certain kind of evidence in time. Like, you don't have to. This is not a criminal trial, right? So like you have a certain level of, I guess, you can decide what level you want to engage. And then if you don't give them all the things they ask for, then they can proceed in this other way, because it's just about money. It's not about criminality at this point. And that she said that from the way he hasn't, since he didn't do that, right? It's basically, he's just having to pay, and he likely has insurance for these kinds of things, rather than create a trial where they're like, basically the information defamation is on.
Here's the thing. This is like, again, it's like the fake FOVID narrative. It's like offering a critique of theater. It's fucking, the whole thing was so fake. I don't care what she says about it. It was all staged. None of it felt real on any, the judge wasn't acting like a judge.
Okay, so I think that kind of trial is not a real trial. It's like,
this is what I'm saying. Like, I saw one of the parents interviewed, and his testimony was that the worst thing to ever happen to him was Alex Jones, and that the last 10 years of his life were a living hell because of Alex Jones. Fucking bullshit. If your child was murdered, that is a much larger problem than some dumbass buffoon. I don't buy it.
Okay,
and the way the judge was handling the whole thing was not like a judge, was not like a person, was not like a professional. It was fake.
The People's Court or Judge Judy or something like that.
It was like my finger puppets is what it was.
Okay, so I get it now. I was talking about the kind of trial I did.
That's what I'm saying. To even legitimize it by giving it that analysis is fakery upon fakery.
But this is the same as it's not any different than the thing at your improv.
Correct.
Yeah.
Except no one's cutting me a deal on the backside to be the bad guy. I just get to be the bad guy again. Right.
So, so I haven't watched any of the trial at all. And I mean, I think the entire thing is theater. I think Alex Jones is theater.
Correct.
So, I mean, if you look at that, there's an autobiography, a Bill Hicks biography or autobiography of Bill Hicks. Like, I had this book that I borrowed from my friend Carmine back years ago, and it was a Bill Hicks autobiography. And in it, there was a chapter about a character that he wanted to create, right? And the character sounded exactly like Alex Jones.
Yeah.
I don't think Alex Jones is Bill Hicks, but I think Alex Jones may be playing the character that Bill Hicks wrote, right? And so it's all a show. It's like show on top of show, on top of show.
Totally. I'm just so tired of being demonized for just telling the truth and standing for truth and standing for free speech. And regardless of what anyone thinks of Alex Jones or Kim Iverson's analysis or whatnot, it's a bad precedent for truth tellers.
I agree.
That's what it is.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why it's so important it's like the January 6th thing. This is all very important to them, because most people who don't pay close attention to things, but catch a few minutes here and there on the Chiron, of CNN when they're at the bank or at the airport or whatever, they'll just see like damning indictment of so-and-so in today's January 6th hearing, or, parent from Sandy Hook. Right. Yes. It's creating it, like the whole event is taking place for the Chiron clips that will be created about it. Yeah.
And the cake around that knows it and is keeping their mouths shut are the fucking problem.
I agree.
We could all shut this down if the cake would open their mouths, grow a pussy, and speak out against it.
Pussy cakes.
Yes.
Gone from pussy hats, we're now into pussy cakes. Somebody's gonna open a nasty bakery and do some shit like that. I don't know.
I'm sure it already exists.
It probably does, right? Okay, so I think that
it ties into that meme I sent you.
Yes, that was gonna be. I was gonna say this is a nice segue to that. I don't have, it's on my phone. Let me send it so we can, let me send it to my email so that we can, read it and go through it, because I have a feeling we're gonna have some agreements about it, some disagreements about it, and some agree to disagreements about it, which is always the best. So let me pull it up here. All right, hold on. Let's see. Copy that, send that to.
I like your flowers.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Laura likes to have flowers in the house, and I like them too, but it's the kind of thing that like like left to my own devices, I will rarely buy something like that.
Mhm.
So,
I
but
noticed you had them last show as well. Different colors, but very sweet.
Okay, I'm sending it. Yes, so Laura really likes flowers, and she likes to make everything beautiful. So
Nice.
yeah, it's a nice addition to my life to have things instead of looking like, like a gym locker. Like my house generally looked like a large gym locker for most of my life. Now it's a little prettier. Okay, so here we go. I can open this and then we can discuss. So this is the meme that you sent me.
Yeah. We should probably have blocked out the name, but whatever. She doesn't watch the show either.
Christians are more susceptible to conspiracy theories because they've been groomed to accept ideas without evidence. The threat conspiracy theorists pose to the health and well-being of our world today is precisely why atheists have been vocal about the dangers of faith for years. Okay, so I'm going to let you have the first crack at it because you got a lot of juice going right now. So go ahead.
This person was my best friend in elementary school and junior high.
Oh, wow. She related to Amber?
No.
Okay.
No.
If we're talking about show trials, I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. Oh, hello, spider. And she I have respect for the restraint she uses with me on social media because it's very clear that she hates my guts and wants to like stab me in the face 1,000 times because I'm one of these horrible people. And I just think it's odd, like this inversion of now now people who have a connection to the divine are now being conflated with conspiracy theorists who are the problem with everything because they believe anything. But the people who are saying this are the people who've done absolutely no research into the things that they're demonizing these people for, and are actually the most religious people because I believe in science is the cult to which they belong, and they don't look at anything. It's just very maddening. It's interesting because anything like her whole page and her whole tribe is like walking through a viper pit. It's not like we'll agree to disagree respectfully. It's like, I will rip your heart out and eat it in front of your face while torturing your children.
Is the person you're talking about Courtney Heard or Star? Okay, that's why I asked about Amber Heard. Okay. Okay. So
I don't know who she, her is.
Okay.
But note to the audience, this is my new strategy. When people have pronouns in their introductions or signatures, I always call them by that at all. The whole thing. Courtney Heard, well, I'll just call him she, her, or he, him, or they, that's their whole name, and I will use it all the fucking time.
Yeah. So like I have a question. Is the one at Improv's class, is her pronoun whole?
It is now.
Okay, because I'm sure she has pronouns.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, okay, so there's, and that one has a lot of, this is how it's like so stupid, and I'm just like, I don't want to be part of the dope show anymore. Like the dope show was fun. I had a lot of dope to do, but now that I don't have any dope left, and I'm not interested in any more dope, the dope show is a lot less. Okay. So okay.
But the threat conspiracy theorists pose to the health and well-being of our world today, that's an extremely dangerous allegation.
100%. Let's go through the whole thing and then we can sort of sum up.
Yeah.
So part here about Christians are more susceptible to conspiracy theories because they've been groomed to accept ideas without evidence. Okay, I'm a person not raised with religion, right, at all. It wasn't even something I really, like, some of the kids at the gym were religious. I mostly ignored it. It wasn't until like I became an adult and I had to like have conversations with grownups who like had this whole other separate set of information they used for judgment about people than I had ever been really aware of, that I kind of had to deal with this. I think there is some, I don't have a problem with Christians at all, but I have a problem when like people do that certain, and you and I were talking about this the other day when I was talking about how even in our own alternative communities, we've been shepherded into like these like pens and silos where we're all speaking the same words and patting each other on the head for doing it the right way. Like there is something about like the circular reference kind of thing that often goes along with Christianity, that the evidence that God is real is in the Bible and blah, blah, that all that kind of stuff. And this whole, I do think that there is a lot of resonance between the idea that like the end times are coming and Jesus or whoever it is going to return, with some of these ideas about whether you're on the left or the right, like the election will be overturned and the one you like will be installed, whether that be Hillary or be Trump or whatever the is, right? And I do think on both sides there are people who are making the biggest claims with the least amount of evidence, and then the people who actually have evidence that is compelling, they don't make as much noise as the ones who are like making claims without evidence and whatever. So there is some of that resonance, right? But this whole thing, this idea that conspiracy theorists, okay, go ahead.
Because I want to stay on the first sentence.
Okay.
Because the word groomed has been really trending on Twitter, right? That's why Tim Pool got suspended from Twitter. So I want to point out the co-opting of the word groomed. And
very smart.
I'm going to speak in code because I know we're on YouTube now. The idea of accepting ideas without evidence.
Right.
There's a certain bug that's been really hyped in the media that has yet to be proven to actually fucking exist.
Right. Well, I think this is where like people have become confused about what actual evidence is, right? So they think that evidence, like remember that time when like I forget who it was one of the hosts on either MSNBC or CNN who said that basically tried to imply that it was like illegal to report on the WikiLeaks and everything that you needed to know about the WikiLeaks would come through them. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Okay, yeah, like
I might have blocked it out because
there was literally someone who said that, right? So I think it's kind of like the idea. It would be like if somebody still thought that like the only place you could go to do research was the library, right? Like that's like an outdated idea. Like there was probably a time, maybe never, actually maybe it was never, where like the information that was presented on certain outlets on television or in newspapers were resonated closely enough with something that would be evidence that one could say, okay, like I read the newspaper and I get some evidence. That is not the world we live in anymore, right? Just like we don't do our research at the library anymore. Like really the only library that you can get something at that you can't get on the internet is probably like Alexandria, Library of Congress, Vatican, right? There's probably some things there you can, there's probably
older microfiche that, that like papers have taken down.
Yes, right. Like papers that have like letters out of alignment on them because the typewriter, that's the evidence that it came from so-and-so's typewriter, that kind of shit, right?
Right.
So I think we're at this, I got into this with people like many years back where I realized that a lot of my friends didn't know the difference between a fact and an opinion. Right. And I think there's people in reality today, and a lot of them are making $200,000 plus a year. So people are confused about whether they're intelligent or smart or right or anything or not, who don't know the difference between information and evidence.
Right.
Right. So like I literally had to explain to a friend of mine who's very, very bright, but had a different kind of education than I had. I recognized that like kids who didn't have a good like elementary education had a murkier, fuzzier relationship with a fact and opinion than I did.
Right.
He got so mad at me, and then he went, and then later he was like, okay, I get what you're saying now. But at the moment when I was having to explain it to him, and I had to get like pretty basic with like analogies for him to get it, like I'm sure he was very offended. Right. But there was no other way around it. So I think like we're in a situation like that. Right. And the problem is she's sitting there with her glasses on, looking down her nose like she's a librarian and she understands the source of all evidence. Right. Like, look at her picture. Right. It's like she definitely has the look, this Courtney Hurd. Right. Like, I'm the librarian. I know where you go to find evidence. Right.
Look at her username, godless mom. Like, I totally get. Look, you and I are both freedom. So if you're an atheist, that's fine. But it's your whole identity construct to be godless. You're not just like that. You're going to take it into your name that it's that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's so reactive. Like, that's fine if you don't believe in something. You know, I don't believe in the tooth fairy. I'm not going to make my username with tooth fairy lies.
The tooth fairy? Where did you get those teeth then? Come on.
But you know, it's so over, like, honestly, it's so over the top. Plus her yellow and blue heart.
This is like,
it feels like a fake, like this is a Chinese bot. It's probably not even real.
100%, right? She has all the current things going on. A Canadian flag because yay, freedom. She, her, and standing with Ukraine. We love Ukraine, even though we never heard of it till last week, right?
I couldn't find it on a map.
Yeah, right. She's like the bot from Current Thing Nation kind of thing, right?
What I also love about the accepting ideas without evidence is that, go ahead.
Somebody gave me a very polite and constructive criticism that I say right too many times after what I say, and I just caught myself doing it. So I was just noting it because I'm trying to make the correction.
Okay, aho. I honor you for that self-awareness and hearing yourself. You're doing a bang-up job.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so at your prodding, I'm re-listening to Jeremy Narby's Cosmic Serpent.
Right.
Okay. I find it so fascinating that the people who are defining themselves by their devotion to indigenous people's rights and that whole thing, and the people who are denying any validity of experiential knowingness, of plant spirits, of that, are the same people who are throwing down these ideas.
Right.
I'm remiss to call it an idea. This Drac.
Right. So, but yeah, so great catch on that that using that word groomed, yeah. Right? Sort of like catch certain kind of attention. But basically, honey, you're describing yourself. So like Christians are not, at this point, like there was a time when I would have agreed that Christians were more susceptible, but after the last couple of years, I would say that college-educated liberals are the most susceptible at this point. And so unless you have a survey you did and there's an enormous amount of Christian college-educated liberals that we're talking about, you've got this one wrong, honey.
Also, would they say that about Muslims?
Well, no, because that's the end. Right. Right. Especially.
Why is it just Christians? It's not all religions.
Right. It's right.
It's just the ones that you're socially sanctioned to shit on.
Correct. The more I look at this person, though, I'm more and more certain she's a bot.
Yeah, right? It can't be real with like, she has too many. It's like the town of Roswell. It's just too on the nose.
It's do you know that the town of Roswell and the UFO museum there is like mostly operated or funded or whatever by the same person that owned the oil company that my mom worked for, the Arco, that paid for my gymnastics, right? That holds patents that like on all kinds of weird things related to like secret space program and cold fusion kind of shit, right?
Oh.
So fascinating world we live in.
Beyond.
Her picture reminds me of, like, when you get on every video you do, at least 3 of those like weird porn link thingies, and there's always like she looks like one of the avatar of those people, or like when you go, it's weird, like it hasn't happened in a long time, but like every couple of years, suddenly you'll get a rush of like porn stars requesting to be your friend on Facebook and shit like that. Like it looks like,
oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That's what she looks like. Anyhow, okay. So then on to the threat conspiracy theorists pose to the health and well-being of our world today is precisely why atheists have been vocal about the dangers of faith for years. Okay. So first of all, I highly suggest she read the bot. Like, go do your like machine learning, whatever. Read, I don't know, maybe this is Lambda or Lilu, or I don't know. So go read Larkin Rose, and basically you'll find that like all people who believe in government are basically not the atheists that they think they are, right? Because they have this belief in this mystical, magical deity called government that there's no evidence for existing, right?
Correct.
So, okay. But the threat conspiracy theorists pose. So I thought a conspiracy theorist, like according to these people, was like a 32-year-old, incel with a tinfoil hat on, living in his mom's basement, eating Hot Pockets. Right. So they can't be both, but right, or whatever. Right. So like, I don't know how, but it's interesting how whenever someone says something like that, there's never any, what about the conspirators, right? So I think like this is where we like, it's one of these things, sometimes we wear the badge conspiracy theorist like with honor, but like we're conspiracy researchers, we're fact analyzers, we're reality observers or whatever. But the term conspiracy theorist is really weird because it's set like, you don't need to have theories when there's so many plain conspiracies happening right out in the open. There's no theory required. All required is the ability to read. So again, now I'm questioning the education of these liberal, these liberal, right? Because they don't seem to be able to read. But there's never anything about the conspirators. There's no concern about the threat posed to the health and well-being of our world of, why isn't she concerned about Bill Gates? Why isn't she concerned about Klaus Schwab or whatever, right? Or
That's all conspiracy theory, which she knows because she accepted these ideas from her liberal talking heads or her programmers without evidence. It's just ridiculous.
So, and the only atheists that I can take seriously, and I'm willing to take these atheists seriously about who are vocal about the dangers of faith, because I think faith can be dangerous. Quite frankly, it can be. But if you're an atheist and you vote, I'm so sorry. I cannot take you seriously.
But I won't succumb to any sort of bigotry. They're intelligent atheists who are on point. They're dumbass atheists. They're brilliant Christians. They're dumbass. Like, this sanctioned bigotry is a glaring problem, and it bothers me. Like, I can't speak for she, her, but Starshine is a mother. How do parents sanction bigotry?
Can you change it to she, her, blue, yellow heart, blue heart? She, her, yellow heart,
she, her, yellow heart, blue heart. I believe in science.
Indigenous. It makes it sound like Dances with Wolves or something like that.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, but this is
the sanctioned hate of large swaths of the population that these people who are so righteous and so virtuous with their blue yellow hearts don't seem to notice themselves doing and modeling for their children. That's the problem.
Yeah. So what this looks like to me is that this is some sort of AI algorithm that scraped all the like trending things on Twitter for that few days or weeks.
Yes.
And then did one of these spun articles, these fake articles.
Right. And then, but what's weird is like, I know Starshine, she's an actual person who does have a brain, and she thinks this is amen worthy. Like, again, it goes back to the cake. So she, her, yellow heart, blue heart is the ganache, and Starshine is the cake. That's the fucking problem.
But don't you think she has to use a religious word and symbol right, in order to explain the sort of like glee or the godly feeling she gets when she looks at like this commandment or whatever, this, you know, this code, this segment of the Bible or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have trouble taking seriously anybody who calls themselves Starshine.
That was her given name.
Are you serious?
Her father starred in the original Broadway production of Hair, which is very interesting, noticing our parallel paths, because we were best friends growing up. She got married right out of college, 2 kids, like super traditional consensus reality path. And then I went my way, the way we both rebelled.
Right. So she, but so I'm sorry, that's her given name. I still have trouble taking it seriously. But also that look on that face, like that is a very Stepford wife kind of look on the face. So whatever this is has completely embodied her.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So do you watch, you do or you don't watch, you watch Stranger Things, you don't watch Westworld?
I watched nothing. I did watch the first season of Stranger Things, and I can't with the creepy stuff. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, Laura has a hard time too. Sometimes she goes back and forth. But one of the things that has been happening really since the beginning, but is becoming more obvious as this goes on, right, is that some of the things that used to be people have devolved and may as well be robots or hosts. And some of the things that started out as a robot or a host or created in, that they have developed more and more characteristics of actual humanity, of actual like emotion and sentience and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so like when I look at both of those things, like I'm assuming that her yellow heart, blue heart is probably fake completely.
Yeah,
but
that doesn't seem real.
Then she's just at a further stage of devolution than Starshine is, but Starshine is well on her way.
Yeah, it's really, I have so many weird feels about it because, of course, I love her. I know her to be highly intelligent and funny, all the things, but it has been very bizarre to watch her become completely overtaken by this indoctrinated hatred and intolerance.
Yeah.
It makes me very uncomfortable.
Right. And the amount of preaching we've had to hear from these people about diversity and tolerance is hilarious, because to me, diversity and tolerance means also for people who, even the ones you say don't do any diversity and tolerance, because that's part of the diversity and right, like the whole, it's a self-solving problem, right? But they don't seem to get it. So okay, I think let's wrap it up.
So and wait, one thing before we wrap up, because I do want to touch on that brief creamy moment.
Yeah.
So do that here. Yeah. So okay. Do you want me to intro it?
Say whatever. So I did not see that whole show. I watched the clip you asked me to watch. And obviously, like I know a lot of the things the Cremies talk about because I'm friendly with them as well. You probably exchange more emails because I just ignore emails, but I have chats with them and whatnot. So I'm somewhat familiar with the kinds of things they talk about, but I did not see that show except for the clip you asked me to watch.
Okay. I watched the show. I am really enjoying my ongoing exchange with Steve because he's brilliant. Mm-hmm. And I knew that they were doing the show specifically on Marx and this Freire. Have you heard of Freire?
I have heard of him before. I think I heard of him from maybe James Lindsay, or maybe Robert has mentioned him before in reference to the Cremies, or maybe they said it to me.
Okay. So this was Friday's Farcast. I recommend everyone watching it. It's really good. And they were really breaking down the indoctrination through education and through the language, which thank you guys for covering that. And I heard this piece. So let me play it. Do I have screen share?
Yep.
Okay. So I heard this piece and it reminded me of what you and I talked about 2 shows ago. So I'm just going to play the clip and then we'll see if we remember what that was. I couldn't get it exact, so there's like an extra 8 seconds.
It looks like Gonzo from the Muppets.
And then
Does he? Now I want to see it, but it's too late. Okay, I'll go back.
You can go back after if you want.
Okay, that's fine.
We can marinate on guns.
So, so there's a real interesting thing that he equated thinking with.
Did you, push pause.
Right.
Did you share sound when you opened your share window?
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
I just want people to be able to hear it.
Okay, of course. That's the whole point. Share sound. Okay,
Very good.
here we go.
So epistemology is the study of how you understand things, how you know things, the study of knowledge, right? And for him, there is no knowledge. There's only thinking. There's only thinking about struggle, thinking about this, but there is no knowledge to be gained.
Okay, so
Clip of David of Fuller with the Vervaeke.
okay, so notice how that parallels this, which we covered. I think it was in words 62.
Yeah.
The best thing I think is, again, going back to John Vervaeke's work, is don't pay attention to the outcome of your thinking. Pay attention to the process of your thinking.
All that matters is thinking. Knowing things is a waste of time. Okay, so did you see that Vervaeke and Pagot were on with Jordan Peterson this week? So there's full cross-contamination, right? Like they're trying to pretend like there's a separation between like the Fuller, Consilience, Schmachtenberger part and it, right? And the Jordan Peterson, right? There's not, because
Were they on with Jordan Peterson?
They're
talking about Jordan Peterson.
No, I think it said Peterson, Pagot, and Vervaeke. Let me check. Hold on a second.
Ooh, so I wonder if Peterson is being pulled into it or has always been.
I think this is thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? This synthesis layer. So like the Jordan Peterson.
I think they're talking about him. It says Demons in the Machine, John Vervaeke and Jonathan Pagot. Is that what you're talking about?
Hold on a second. Let me see. Where is my Jordan Peterson? Let me find what I'm talking about.
Vervaeke is all over this channel.
Well, I think those two names, Vervaeke and Pagot, they sound like Aristotle and Plato or some shit like that, right? They're the names that
that's interesting.
Because it immediately like there's
Vervaeke, Aristotle. It's like the same rhythm.
They're names that sound like they would be classical thinkers or ancient philosophers, or that they're bringing some form of like classical wisdom. They sound like the kind of name that if he wasn't so sharp, Steve Crimmy would be attracted to listen to their nonsense, right?
Totally.
Hold on, let me see. I thought I saw, okay, I guess I'm mistaken.
Was it on Rebel Wisdom?
No, it's right here. Podcast, Deeper Yet Into the Weeds, Pagot, Vervaeke, and Peterson. 2 hours and 31 minutes and 49 seconds one day ago.
Was it a Rebel Wisdom podcast?
No, it's on Jordan Peterson.
Oh, it's Jordan Peterson's podcast.
That's what I'm saying. So this is the synthesis, right? It's synthesis.
And Peterson just got pulled onto a big network.
Daily Wire. I'm telling you, this is
my God.
Synthesis. Right? This is like anybody who thinks that like they're different. They're just not. They're trying to bring everybody into the central strip of the brain. Like you know what I mean? They're trying to like, it's the thesis, antithesis, and now it's time for synthesis. Everything that you and I have been talking about and explaining, we've been explaining the thesis and the antithesis since the very first moment that we did even when you came on, like on Off Planet, right? And then what we've been really talking about for at least a year, but maybe two now, is just the complete synthesis part of this, right? Like everybody is being synthesized into something that is not as good as the music in the 80s was. Sorry.
Not even close.
Right?
Yes, safe travels, a call, Olivia Newton-John. We love you.
Yeah.
Sexy Sandy was the best.
Well, the leg warmers, right? We have her to thank for the leg warmers, don't we?
Let's Get Physical.
Yeah.
You think she was the one who brought them on the scene?
I mean, it was her and like Jane Fonda at about the same time.
Also, Jamie Lee Curtis in Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So, but I think for myself, wasn't there like some video of Olivia Newton-John? Maybe it was Let's Get Physical, like where she has him on, but at some point she kicks him off. She like kicks it off. Like that was my favorite thing to do at the gym, right? Was like when we were doing our passes and dance down the diagonal across the floor, like to on accident, but kind of on purpose, make a leg warmer fling off my leg when I did my leap.
So
you know,
dramatic.
I feel like that's like one of my favorite things to do. Like when I get home from work is like kick my shoes off and let it go fly. Yeah. But with the leg warmer, because especially if you could make it seem like it was an accident, but like really you were, it's like,
Like I'm just that powerful of a tumbler.
Yeah. So, okay. So yes, so that's there. We're going to move over to Afterwords.
And note that that is straight out of Marxism, like straight out of it.
Schmachtenberger. Oh, but let's go back to Gonzo to bring up Ferrari. And I want you to see, he looks like a Muppet to me, but I think he looks like Gonzo. Let's check.
Okay. Sharing screen, portion of screen. Oh, shoot. I moved it back. Stand by. Him.
Okay.
Oh, he does.
Let's go look at Gonzo. Let's stop your share and I'm going to pull up Gonzo.
Wait, one more little, just so we can get it in. He does look like Gonzo. He's Gonzo. I wonder if he has a chicken girlfriend named Camilla.
Okay, so let's just see what Gonzo looks like. Gonzo. Oh my God, he looks exactly like him, dude.
So he's Gonzo. Schmack is Marx.
Look at that.
Plot thickens. Now we're gonna have to do a deep dive into the Muppets.
Look at that. Looks exactly like him, dude. Oi.
Wow. Okay. Good call.
Okay, so we're gonna go. I'm getting really good at this, like saying who someone looks like.
You
right?
are.
Yeah, it's getting pretty.
I hope it's on your special skills on your resume.
Well, pattern recognition is on my special skills. Pattern analysis, pattern recognition. Okay, we're going to move over into the supporter segment. We are going to do analysis of a shit show that might include a puppet show. Yeah. So if you want to watch that, if you want to watch it, you need to go to wordspodcast.locals.com. If you have not joined us yet, there is a promo code for a free month down below. If you want to listen to it and you're one of Dani or I's supporters of a certain level at other locations, then you can listen to it. But if you want to watch, and there may be puppetry, well, there's definitely puppetry going on, but puppetry, then wordspodcast.locals.com. Okay, we will see you on the other side. Bye-bye. It's cool, Scooby-Doo. So
yeah.